So here we are ready to start our memory box project. So as I said in the introduction, I'm using the Amazonia papers, which I got from Intercraft at a really competitive price. So have a look on their website. And as I went through, I looked for a page which had some small patterns or just some colours I liked, because we're only going to be using thin strips of it. So you don't want to use one of your large images here because you're going to be cutting it up into smaller bits. So I've gone for the lily pad one here. And the box itself is based on my basic square by square box, which I've already made a tutorial for. Now that one has a full lid. So when you opened it up, you've got that full lid there and there. But in now my Stamperia one, my Mechanical SeaWorld one, what I did was cut out an aperture in the lid and use some acetate. So not only does it look really nice, but what that's done is meant I can get the entire box covered in just the one sheet. Whereas if I had that, you may need another sheet. I know you can buy the Stamperia papers in single sheets as well. So if you needed to buy one more because you liked one of the larger images and wanted to do a full lid, you can. But I wanted to show you something a bit different. The other thing that's different in this tutorial to my basic square one is obviously the size, but also the closure. Here, I've got a magnetic flap closure. So the original one had ribbon ties. So just something different again. So I've got my one sheet of paper, which I'll put to the side. And let's bring in some of my greyboard. So it's 1.5 mil I'm using here. And it's made in two parts. So we'll make a box and then we'll make a wrap for it, a bit similar to how we make our album covers. So to start off with, you're going to have a base. So the base of your box is going to be 9.25 by 6.75. And then you're going to have your two short sides here, which are also 6.75 inches long. So the same as the base, plus the thickness of your chipboard. So you can see it's just a tiny bit longer. So if you're using 2 mil, you'll just add 2 mil onto there. So we've got the short sides at 2 inches by 6.75 plus the thickness. And the same principle for our long bits. They're 9.25 plus the thickness, so it overhangs a little bit, and again 2 inches. So that's what we're going to have in the end. And then our wrap around for it, you need to cut 2 pieces, 9.5 by 7. So that's going to be your base and your lid. Now with the lid, I'm going to be cutting this center out later on. For now, it's just 9.5 by 7. You're going to have a spine, just like we do with our memory books, which is 9.5 by 2. And then we're going to have a flap coming over, which is 9.5 by 1.5. To make this video a little different to the other one, I'm only going to be using tape and glue to assemble this. Now in my original one, I actually used black gesso. So if you want to see a way of using it, if you haven't got the tape, or you want to save a lot of tape, have a look at the black gesso version. But for now, I'm going to use just tape and a bit of glue for this one. So I'm going to start off with my 2 long bits, sides, and my 2 short sides, and my base. So I'm going to take my construction tape. I'm going to get a nice, decent length. And what I'm going to do, it's flipped over, is I'm going to wrap the whole base in the tape. So all I'm doing is taking it around and placing my chipboard half on and half off, so it's down the middle of the tape. I'm sure you're thinking, well, I haven't got this tape. Can I still make it if I haven't got the tape? The answer is yes. I'll show you in a second a different method. So if you haven't got the tape, you can still have a go with this. But I really would recommend, if you like these sort of projects and you like your albums and your 3D things, this tape is well worth a look. So I've just pinched the edges, just like I do with my albums. And I'm just going to cut a V shape down towards the corner. So I've cut off a V like that. And again, I'm going to do that in every corner. And believe me, this is much easier when you're not trying to get it in a shot and showing other people how to do it. I would normally just race around this. So I'm going to do all 4 of the corners on the top and flip it over, and I'm going to do the same with the base. One, 2, 3, and 4. Okay. So this part covering the base is actually not doing anything for the construction. This is actually just covering the edges to give me a nicer finish at the end. So that's why you could just use your black gesso. But I want to just show you a different way. So all I'm doing now is I'm just pinching the tape around the edges. So I'm just starting in the middle and pressing down. And then I'm just sort of working away from the center, like so. So we've covered the outside. So as I said, that's not for the construction. That's just so when I come to matte and layer, when I come to the insides of my box, it's all going to be nicely finished. So now we're going to do the same with our sides. But I don't need to cover all 4 sides like I did with the base. Here, I just need to do a short edge, down, 1 long edge, and the short edge again. So I'm only covering 3 sides. We'll be covering the 4th side later on. So again, I'm going to pinch and pinch. And I'm just cutting down towards those corners again. And again, I'm going to just pinch from the middle, pinch out, quite easy on the short sides. And then with the long one, again, just pinch it down and gently just pinch it over. So that's 1. Oh. Don't panic if it tears. Let's just start it again. So if it does tear, what I tend to do then is just cut it off at a straight again, so I've got a nice straight side. I think I was just trying to rush there to try and get the not so exciting part done. I've done it again. It's because I'm trying to be in shot. Usually I just lay it down onto my table and squeeze it down on, but obviously here I'm trying to work around the camera and things as well. Okay. So again, this part isn't construction. This is just to give me the black edge all around. So it's more decorative than anything else. That's my dog waking up. He refused to go out of the room today, so he's decided to stay in with me today. So I apologise if he starts to snore, which he's very likely to do. Again, pinch down the two short bits, press down on the long bit, and squeeze it down. So that's our two long ones done. And now I'll do the same with my short sides. So see, it's the same process over and over again. I could have prepped some beforehand, but I think it's important to go through bits as well with you. So you can see the process from start to finish today. Yeah, so there's the corners done. Again, just pressing down the sides. And the longer edge. It's not that long because this is the short side. And one more. And there's one side and the other. There we go. And our last side done. So like I said, you could have skipped all this by just painting some black gesso around the edge, and I'll link my older video for you to see that sort of way in the description below. So I'm just going to press down my tape onto my board all the way around. I'm just going to cut just a couple of the strips, just about an inch long. I'm just putting them off to the side just to help me when I'm holding my box together. Okay, right. So we've got all our bits prepared for the box. So what we're going to do now is have all the blacks edges facing my box, because this is going to be the inside of our box. So all we've done is tidied up the inside. So I'm going to start with this long edge. Now with this long edge, the only bit that's going to be in contact with anything else at the moment is this long edge with the base. So that's all I'm going to do is take my glue. I'm using my Cosmic Shimmer acrylic glue, which is nice and strong. And I'm just going to take a bead along the bottom. So you really want it to be touching the bottom, because you're only going to have contact on that first 1.5 millimeter. So I'm just making sure it's touching the bottom. You don't need to glue any higher than that. And I'm going to line this corner up with this corner, and I'm going to have a bit of an overlap over here. But obviously there's going to be nothing else holding it on at the moment. So I'm going to prep my second one as well. Exactly the same, just on the edge. Try not to go too high. And as I bring that up, the edge of this short one is going to touch that long one. So I'm going to apply some glue there as well. So I'm going to lift this and get some contact. And I'm going to tuck that one in and make sure it touches that overlap there. So as long as I've got contact on the base, I'm going to try and line up that top bit. So I'm going to take one of those little pieces I had earlier, and what I'm going to do is just use that just to hold it in place. Okay, so I'm just going to hold it for a second, and you'll see now, because I've butted it up against here, I've now got a bit of an overlap here. So the next piece will slot into here. So by adding that plus thickness, what I've done is made it easy for later on. So now this time, it's this thin edge here, which is going to make contact with the side of my box. And then this long edge is going to make contact with my base. I went a bit high there, so get it back on. So I'm going to press it against the base and then butt it up to the edge of that corner. Take one of those pieces I had earlier, line it up, and then just wrap that around. That's just holding it in place for now. So I'm making sure I've got contact all around. That's all in touch with the base. So it is a lot of fiddly bit just to make sure everything is in place for now. It's not going to be the most exciting thing at the moment because I'm just holding things in place. Now I did say, if you haven't got any of this tape, these bits now in the corner things, what you can do is take construction pieces. Now this all construction strip is 1 inch of cardstock scored down the middle, so scored at 1/2 inch, and that's all you do is you put your tape and glue there, and you can just wrap around the outside of your corners, or you can wrap it on the, put them on the inside as well. So you can build the box using just long strips of black cardstock, or actually any colour cardstock you want. Okay, I think that's getting there. So now my last one is going to be a bit different because it's going to have a few points of contact. So it's going to, the overlap is coming against this one this time. So I want to do the front of this and the bottom, and then the edge here, which will come into that overlap here. So I'm going to tuck it into that overlap and touch on there. So I've got 2 more bits of my 1-inch tape here, which I can just wrap around there just to hold that in place. And again here. So I just want to make some contact there. And you will want to hold your box for a little bit, just so that it dries. Just hold it against that base. Hold the bottom of the side, touching that base until that glue starts to set. Because it does take a little bit longer because it's on tape rather than cardstock or paper. So whilst that's drying, get some more contact there. Just keep moving until you're happy with it. I told you it wouldn't be the most interesting bit, making the box, because it is just a lot of working out. That's my box made. It's not finished yet. There's a couple more bits I need to do to it, but I want it to dry a little bit before I do that. So I'm going to put it off to the side. And what we're going to do is bring back the outer bits. So if you remember, this is our 9.5 by 7 pieces, our 9.5 by 2 spine, and our 9.5 by 1.5 flap. So this is exactly like I would do my album covers. So I'm going to start off with my outer base. Take a nice long strip. And I'm going to cover one short, a long one, and the final short one. There we go. Again, pinch at the corners and just go down either side of that score line. Okay, and then just burnish it down. So I've covered 3 sides of this one. And then I'm going to move on to my spine next. And with my spine, I just want to cut the top and bottom. So I'm just going to cut one piece. And cut another piece for the bottom. So it doesn't have to be exact. You can see that I got a little gap each side. That's fine. That's going to be covered with tape later on anyway. So that's my spine. Now, before I take my lid, I'm going to cut my aperture. So for that, I brought in my trimmer. So I'm going to cut in 1 1/4 inches from each side. So I'm going to line up this bit with my 1 1/4 inches this side. I'm going to line up my cutting tool at 1 1/4, and I'm going to come down to 8 1/4 inches. So I started at 1 1/4 and I stopped 1 1/4 inches up. I'm going to move it down. And I'm going to do the same. So 1 1/4 down to 8 1/4. Now I'm going to put the long edge across the top, and again 1 1/4 inches across for my blade. Again, start at 1 1/4, and this time I'm stopping at 5 1/4. Turn it around. Or I could have just slid it. And I'm gonna... So your choice now is, you could flip it over and repeat it, but that depends on how accurate you are measuring. I'm not that accurate, so what I'm gonna grab is my cutting mat and my knife, and I'm just gonna work my way, because we've got that groove in place. I can just follow it around. Again, down the short side. So I've come in 1 1/4, because that means that when I come to decorate it, I'm just going to need 1-inch strips. So it's just to make my life easier. You could, of course, do wider ones, which would give you a small aperture, or you could have gone a little bit thinner. I wouldn't go less than 1 inch, otherwise you're going to lose the sturdiness for the lid. And there we have. Right. So if you've still got some furry bits in the corner, just take your scissors and get rid. So I'm just going to take my tape again, and I'm going to take just some small pieces, some small strips, and I'm just going to cover them on a diagonal here. I told you the dog would start snoring eventually, didn't he? He's just at my feet here. But there was no way today he was leaving the room. Okay. Now this is just going to tidy up our corners for later on. So I can do it on top. I also need to do it on the underneath. So let's just... Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover the inside part, just to do a nice finish. Now your other option, again, is your black gesso or a black pen and alcohol marker. That would also work. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut a piece the length of my aperture. Careful it doesn't properly. And I'm going to fold it. This is my non-sticky side towards each other, and I'm just going to miter the corner like that. So I'm making sort of an arrowhead. And what that'll help me is with getting it into the corners now. So again, miter the other side. Now don't panic if it's not exact, there are ways we can get around it in a second. So I'm just going to lift my lid, and I'm going to place that corner right into that joint. Not joint, into the corner. And again, there. And if you do at the end find you've got some greyboard still showing, just take your alcohol marker and just colour it in, or just an ink marker, whatever. You'll be able to cover it up, so don't panic. So again, I'm just going to mite to the corners. So this is one of the shorter edges. I've cut that a bit too short, but it's okay, I can cover it at the end. What I'll do is I'll take a thin strip, because this is going to be covered with the cardstock and the decorative paper. What I can do is I can just take thin strips of this and I can just sort of mould it into that corner. That's a good thing about this tape. It can fix a multitude of sins. So again, I lost my scissors for a second. Just going to miter it. And just like I did on there, just a little bit fiddly because you've got to do it from the inside. Just start in the centre and work your way out. And the last one here. Now you will find these little triangles get everywhere. Yeah. So there I've covered the inside of my aperture. So I've missed it a little bit here. So what I'm going to do is just put some tape over that. And again, anywhere where you might see a little bit, just cover it up again. That side looks pretty good. Might just see a little bit of the grey board there. Excellent, so that's the inside decorated. So this now is also needing some tape on the top and bottom. So again, just the length, hold it down, flip it on the edge and over, and again here. So I'm just stretching it out, putting it down the middle. It doesn't have to be exactly, you don't have to measure halfway down, just so it's roughly half and half. So we've got our three edges, our top and bottom, and the inside of the aperture. So the last thing we need is the flap, and this will need the two short and one long. So we're doing three sides here. are the last V's we're going to have to cut. So I'm using my titanium scissors. I find they are the best for not having it stick in. Just burnishing and folding over. There we are. So we get rid of my my cutting board, and bring back all my pieces. So now we're going to attach them just like we do if you've watched one of my albums. I'm going to take my tape and I'm going to measure 1 inch above and below. So it's 1 inch longer on each side. Doesn't have to be exact again. If I take these out and if I turn this way, you may see a bit better. There we go. So what I've got is just 1 inch or so. So I'm just holding with those fingers. I'm just going to bring this and place it there, half on. I'm going to take my spine and I'm lining up my corners there and there. I'm going to lift them together and I'm going to make contact with the tape and give it a wiggle. Then I'm going to flip it down flat and give it a press. And when I open it up, when I pull them apart, what I've got is my double width in between, so it acts like a hinge. So there's no need to measure or guesstimate. You're using your chipboard as your measuring guide as well. So I'm just pulling it up nice and taut and pressing it down. So you want to hide then that gusset, so I'm just going to bring back my tape again. Obviously, if you want to cover this with something other than black, you can do the traditional cardstock method. That would work. I just prefer the tape because you just don't get any cracks happening. So there's one. And I'm just going to repeat the same again. I'm going to cut it 1 inch or a bit more longer than my bit on each side. I'm going to bring it and drop it on. So this time now, I've done my base, my spine, now my lid. So it doesn't matter which way around the lid goes, because it's all going to be covered anyway. So I'm going to, again, hold it all together. I'm lining up those two corners and the sides this time, making contact and flipping it over. Open it out and just pulling down here. So that's how you would do your traditional album cover with the tape method. So obviously that side would be covered as well. Oh, tape touched. There we go. And taped. Oh, get that out. There we are. So there's our box coming along now. So now I'm just going to add the flap. So the flap is going to be a little bit different. It's going to start off the same. I'm going to make it just an inch or so each side. So I'm going to place it down. Place my lid bit on, but rather than holding it flat this time, I'm actually going to have it stuck myself to my... This is so much easier when you're not doing it on camera. I'm going to lift this so it's at 90 degrees. And I'm going to take my lid and place it in, because I'm not wanting that loose hinge this time. Let me try and get it to the light so you can see what I'm doing and where I'm not sticking. Right, there we are. So it's at 90 degrees and I'm just placing the flap in line. So it's touching exactly like it was before. Well, not like it was before, sorry. There we are. Okay, so that now will give us that L-shape flap. Okay, so we don't want it too far apart like we do when we've got the hinges like that. So I'm just going to bring it over. And over. So then when it comes back, it's actually coming into that nice 90 degree for me. And some tape. Okay, so that's our flap. So this now will wrap around that box from earlier. So it's not going to come all the way down because that's our flap. So don't worry, that is meant to be shorter than the spine. So let's bring back my box. So this is dried now, but I just want to actually connect it all. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start with the bottom piece. So right now it's all just glued there, but this tape now is just going to hold it all together. So I'm going to start off, again, half onto my box and half off. And I've just started in the middle. And I'm going to work my way around my box. Now those little inch ones which are holding it together, you can take them off just to reduce the bulk. So careful now, you don't want to tear it like I did earlier. If you do, it doesn't matter. You just cut it off and you just carry on from that point. So you don't have to take these inch pieces off. As I said, they were just there for holding, but they wouldn't get in the way of your project at all. There we go. Try and get those creases out. There we are. So you do get a couple of attempts with it. So it doesn't stick down straight away, so don't panic. You have got some wiggle time. So just create some overlap so it's a bit longer. Now don't worry, you don't have to line up the top at all. Just keep it nice and flush. So I'm a bit off it, it doesn't matter. So now I've got a piece of tape going all the way around and it's a bit higher than my box. So I'm going to do that V shape again. So what this is doing now is holding my box together. So there's one. There's two. And the last one there. So that now has had everything held together. And I'm going to do the same along the top edge now, this raw edge I've got. So I'm going to start at the back again. So I want cut it more in half. There we are. So just work a little bit at a time with your tape. So this is going to hold all my sides together, but also neaten off the edges. So I've got some overhang. And again, just squeeze the corner so we can go down each side of it. I'm trying to do a bit of shadows today, I'm not very good. Especially when I'm working inside a box as well. I think you can work out what I'm doing here. And now just fold them all neatly over the top. So this just gives you that nice finish as well as holding all the corners together. Okay. Just give it a little press. And that's your box done. So when you come to see your box, you'll see where it was meeting. What you can do there is again take more of your tape, just cut it the height of your box, so 2 inches. You can fold the non-sticky in again, so sticky is on the outside and the outside on the bottom, and just mite the corners like we did when we did the inside of our lid aperture, and you can just put those 2 points on there, and that just neatens out your corners, but you are actually going to be covering a majority of that with your decorative paper, so you're not going to see much of it, but I think it just finishes it off. And again, holds the corners together. So that's a bit long, so that's all I'm going to do is fold it again and trim it shorter. There we are. And again, this tape is very forgiving. You don't have to be exact. Because it's black on black, it will hide a lot of your imperfections. If you have a look at mine, it's not 100%, but as I said, most of it's going to be covered. So I've done one there. I've done one there. Let's do one here. I only need one more. Okay. And there we are. Our box has now just been all taped up, so it's now all held together with that tape. And that's all we need to do now is glue this into the box. Now, one bit I did forget to do. What we need to get is a piece of scrap to go onto the back. So I'm going to go grab that now and I'll be right back. sorry about that, but I forgot my scrap piece, which is in the cutting list. Now the scrap piece hasn't got a definitive size. It just needs to be smaller than your long edge of your box. Now I've covered it in the tape again, but you could equally just colour it in with an alcohol marker or some black gesso, because you're only going to see the thin edge of it all. So mine is 1 3/4 by 9. And that's all this scrap piece is. Because our base is that 1/4 inch wide all around, we've got that tiny little lip. So the lip will be on this side as well. So when our spine comes up, it wouldn't have much contact. Now this time, I think I'm actually okay without it. But if you've got a large gap there, what you'd want is that scrap piece just stuck in the middle of your base, just so when you come to put your glue on here, you've got that contact. So it's up to you, you can use it, or if you've got enough of a lip, you're fine. Let's have a look, which is it better with or without today? Today I'm going without it. Okay, so this was the back because it's got all those joins. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some strong tape. So this isn't really going to hold my box in place. It'll be the glue which will do that. But it will help me keep the contact for now. So don't worry about too much by getting it too close to the edges and things. It's just a for now measure. So let's just take off the backing. Press it down. There we are. Just put them in the bin. Again, grabbing my strong glue. And I'm not going to be stingy with this because I want my box to hold together. And what I'm going to do now is just centralize that onto that base. So I'm just going to bring that up. You can see we've got that little lip there. Right, I just want to make contact everywhere. And then just take my tape down the spine. And before I attach it, what I'm going to do, I'm going to attach my acetate as well. So I'm just coming in about 1/8 from the edge, because that will be visible beneath my paper later on. So I don't want to be able to see the tape. So I'm not going right up to the aperture. There's the aperture. I'm coming back just 1/8. And so my acetate has just been cut smaller than my lid, but obviously bigger than the aperture. And let's take this off. Now I put it on the inside because then you get that nice little drop on the front, that little bit of depth between the top and the acetate. But you can put it on the front if you prefer. This is just my preference. And there we go. So it's easier to do that before you attach the spine. Just get rid of the tape bits. And let's add some glue to the spine and to the box, so they get the edge touching. So again, just centralize it. Got a bit of give as we move around. Let's get the contact. And that's your box then made. So your flap will go up now because we didn't give it the full bit, so it'll come down nicely. So what we'll do now is we'll add some magnets just to the inside of our flap. So these are just 1mm by 10mm magnets. And I'm going to attach these with my tape. So I'm going to put one on either side. And one in the middle. So once I've got that now, what I'll do is I'll put sticky side up. I'm going to drop my magnet on top. So I've used 6 magnets in all. One there. And so the reason I got it much longer than you think I need it is so when I come to make the contact, I've actually got tape touching. So this is our time now, just to line up our box nicely and place these where, because this is exactly where the magnets will bring your lid every time. So you may need to get your knife or something just to get in, just to get the tape down, because the magnets are strong. Let's have a look. So I've got 2 down. You can feel the clunk already. So I did try 0.5mm magnets here, which is my usual go-to, but I found they were just a bit too thin. They just weren't powerful enough. So I went with a 1mm this time. Let's have a look. There we are. So now, let's just press these down. So the tape on top does stick them together, yes, but what it'll also do is smooth out that bump as well. So when you put your papers on, you get a bit of a smoother finish. So let's just make sure everything is taped down. We don't want our magnets ripping our box apart. So there we go. Our closure, pretty strong, decent closure there. And the box is done. Just need to decorate it now. So let me put it to the side. And let's bring back my... Now, you may think, oh, that's the same scoring tool. Cutting. Oh, but what this is now, what I've done is I've swapped my blade. The first one I used is the one I used for chipboard. This is my sharper one now for paper. So my edges are 2 inches deep. So what I'm going to do here is cut it at 1 3/4. So I'm going to need 4 of those. And think about your paper as well. I really like this wording here, so I want that as part of my lid. So my lid was 1 1/4 inches wide. So what I'm going to do is cut my papers at 1 inch. So 1 2, 3, and the last one. So I've got 1 3/4 inch strips and 1 inch strips. So let's start with our lid. So our lid is 9.5 long. So 9.5. Which one do I want on the top? The Amazon wording one, wasn't it? Here we are. What did you say it was? It was 9.5, wasn't it? Let me just double check. I'd rather double check. There we are. So I want to cut it at 9 1/4. So it's 9 1/4. So that strip now is going to go on to my lid. So I need one for the other side as well. So 9 1/4 again. So I'm liking this map. So although I didn't like those lily pads, I do like this bit. So it all worked out in the end. And what I'm going to do, let me bring this back, is I'm going to take my black distress ink and I'm just going to edge to take that white core away. And on this bit. Yeah, I was determined to get that Amazonas wording. I just hope I'm not going to lose it now when I come to cover it. So let's put that, because I'm quite notorious about getting ink smudges. So do I want the Amazonas wording on the top or on the bottom? This is going to be the hardest decision, I think. I quite like it on the top, I think, yeah. So I'm going to glue this down, make sure I get into the corners. And I've just lined it halfway between the top and the bottom there. And I'm going to do the same here. Oh, this map's got wording. Let's make sure it's the right way up. That way. Okay. So I've done my top and bottom first, because what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use those to measure my side strips. So I quite like that one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to line up that corner there. I'm just going to mark diagonally there, because what that will do now is, when I find my scissors, I'm going to go from that mark directly to that corner, and that's going to give me my mitered edge without me having to do any measuring things. I'm going to get the exact alignment because I'm using the paper. So now I'm just marking the top. So I've just come in a tiny bit just so I can see the edge of my paper. Okay, so I've marked the top and I'm marking the bottom, and I'm just going to cut a line from that mark, and it's just freehand. I'm not taking a ruler or anything because I got the paper underneath. It's not going to matter. That's all that matters is those two joins there and there. So again, let me just take my black soot, and I'm going to go a little bit heavier on these diagonals, just so it highlights a shadowy bit there. So that is my easy mitering. So no tools or anything like that. So let's get that on. This is one side. And it's just a shame this is just a bit too short to get two from one sheet. So I got my other one here. So which side am I going to use? That sort of ties all in there. Yeah, we'll go with that one. So I'm just marking that corner because I've already got the corner marked there. Here's this one. And here's this one. You can't see the pencil line, but I can see the shine. And then from the corner out. And again, I'm going to get that darkness in the diagonal. I really want that to be a deep black. Everything else just gets that light just to hide the white. There. Again, put the lid on. And there we have our other side. So just 4 1-inch strips there, and done. So now let's do the sides. So our sides were just over 6 3/4 because we added that little thickness, but I'm just going to stick to 6 3/4. So I've just got, but I did have one which I wanted for the front. Ah, here we are. The Riviera de Amazon. Let me do that one first because I don't want to cut it up by mistake. So let's just measure here. So it's 9 1/4. So we're going to cut it down to 9. But I think I will add that little 1/8 just to finish it off nicely because we added that thickness. Just a little 1/8. Nothing to worry too much about. Right. So this will have that bonus of having that score tape to hold it in place as well. So you're going to have to be really careful as you put this one down because of those magnets. Let's make sure it's the right way up. So I'm hovering. There we are. And so remember those magnets are there. So that makes a nice front for the box. And this will now go on the back. So again, 9 inches. And then, oh, let's go that side. I've got to tear that side. Happy with that. Okay, let's make sure the lily pad is the right way up. And now just the two short sides, which were 6 3/4 inches. So let's do 6 3/4, and then let's just add that little 1/8 again. Just put it on just to make sure it fits. It doesn't, because I forgot it was 6 3/4, which means 6 1/2, and that little bit. Here we are. Now it fits. Let's do the other one while I've got my cutting board. So 6 1/2 and a little 1/8. Here we are. So let's just distress them. No, I actually quite like that lily, but no, I'm going to stick to this side because it'll tie everything in. And the lid on. So I'm going to put this with that leaf coming from the back of the box to the front. And then on the front, on the other side. Don't press it too hard there. And that's our Stamperia paper added. Now I do need a strip for the front flap, but what I'm going to do is, I couldn't get it out of what was left. So what I'm going to do is wait until I finish my project, and at some point I would cut myself a 1 1/4 inch strip from something. And I will use that then to finish off my flap at the end. So all I'm going to do now is decorate the inside. And for this, I'm just going to use black cardstock. So let me get all the paper things out of the way. And I don't need my magnets anymore, so I can put them away. I'll put the lid on the glue so it doesn't dry. So all I've got is some black sheets of cardstock. This is what I'd use for my albums. So we're going to start off with the base, which is 9 1/4 by 6 3/4. So if I make that 1/4 inch smaller, it's 9 by 6 1/2. So now that will fit into the bottom. So you can see now why we lined the black base with the black tape at the start. It was nothing to do with the construction. It was so I could put this in and you wouldn't see any of the grey board showing. And we'll just get some glue onto the base as well. So I'm just going to drop this in. Get my Teflon tool. And if you have got some glue, don't panic, it'll dry clear and you can just rub it off. There we go. And then I'm just going to do the same. So it's 1 3/4 inch strips for, have I got enough from this scrap bit? I don't think it, oh it is 1 3/4. So if we had 9 1/4, I'm going to go back to 9 inches. Ah, perfect, 9 inches. So this is going to line one of my long pieces. So let's put it into that long one. I know it must be a bit boring now because we're just seeing black on black. So let's see, is this long enough? No. So I can use this for one of my sides. So again, 1 3/4. And these were, is it 6 3/4, did we say? Yep, so 6 1/2. So 1 3/4 by 6 1/2. So yeah, it's tricky for you to see, but it's just a bit smaller than that edge, just so we can get it in. And get another sheet, and we cut at 1 3/4. Let's do a few strips while I've got it. So it was by 9 and 6 1/2. Okay. So let's get my Teflon tool and just press it all down. So that's the base finished. So that's where you're saving on your Stamperia paper because you're not covering the inside. But if you have spare papers, if you've got the graphic 45 or something, you've got spares, decorate the inside as well. So now the lid, we're going to do exactly as we did on the front. We're going to cut some 1-inch strips. And I'm going to take it from this piece because I can use that for something. Let's do it. Right. And we're going to do the same again here as we did with the front. But we're actually going to come up to the edge. So we're hiding. So let me measure the aperture this time. So the aperture is 4 1/2. So I'm going to cut this strip at 5 1/2. And because we've got the acetate there, I am going to add some of my tape onto this one. This way, you don't want to make your acetate sheet too big. Okay, so I'm just gonna. I was supposed to add 1 inch to each side, wasn't I? So 4 1/2, 5 1/2, 6 1/2 you went. That was just in time. Because you do want that extra edge each side to do the miters. That was close. So 6 1/2. So try and evenly edge it. So again, 5.5. Oh, sorry, 6.5. Nearly did it again. 6.5. Again, the tape. Rather than the glue, just because we've got the acetate. And now take our black strip, and I'm lining it up just like I did before and marking where the overlaps are happening. So I'm going to overlap my tape here over that V shape. I'm going to trim it just so I got the tape right up until the corners. So this was here. And the last one would go there and there. So all I did was I marked there and there, just like I did with the lid. And again, trying to get my tape into the corner. So that's my easy miter way. So you get a nice miter in the corner. If you've got some glue, just scrape it off. I do seem to get more glue on me when I'm doing my videos because I'm watching more my angles and things as opposed to the project itself. Oh, and then that piece I kept back, I'm hoping will fit here. So this is 1 1/4 as well. And I think it's by 9. Yeah. Nope. Is it? No, it's 9.5, so it's 9 1/4. So I'm going to put double-sided tape on this one as well, just because it's cardstock on top of the magnets. I don't think the glue will do too well. Let's just take off these as well. Let's just take my Teflon tool. I like this because you can rub and it just won't do those white scratches on your project, on your black card. So that's all the inside now, layered in black card, and my lid and my base covered with that Amazonia paper, just that little bit to cover when I've done all my wallets and things, and I know what I've got left. So there we are. Thanks for watching the box tutorial, and so I'll be back soon and I'll show you lots of different ways of creating the photo wallets to go inside. But as I said, I've designed the photo wallets for standard photos. Now I think I will end up finishing the box because I can't see me using these. I'll definitely not these ones because of the size of them. They don't really go with the 6x4. They might go with the 4x4s, but these definitely won't. So one of these might make its way into the bottom of the box. I'll decide at the end which one and which one works. Okay, so that's how I decorated the entire box, with one sheet of the paper, except for the bit which I'll use a scrap piece for. So really economical box. And if you do have a go at this, please share with me in my Facebook group, Paper Crafting with Paul. There'll be a link in the description below. And please hit that subscribe button and the thumbs up. That's really nice to see them. And if you're wanting to make your own version and you need some Stamperia paper, remember to head to Into Craft and check them out as well. So make your box, and I'll see you soon for some photo wallets. See you soon.